If your children are anything like my three, then you will increasingly get asked not for cash, but for in-game currency, money to buy stuff with in their computer games. It might be for downloadable content like a game or a game pass. Sometimes it's for costumes for their characters, which, by the way, they call skins. Maybe you worry about how much they're spending in games. We do hear horror stories, don't we, of children racking up a fortune on their parents' credit cards. Can this kind of spending teach any useful money lessons? Well, I had a chat with Andy Robertson, founder of the website Family Gaming Database, which helps parents navigate this stuff.
So the game you're playing will have its own kind of ecosystem. And it's worth saying that sometimes the complexity is that it can have multiple currencies in one game, which is quite complicated, but at times can be quite a nice way to talk about sort of financial information, and going through that together with a child can be quite positive.
And that's quite interesting then, because some parents will think that spending money on any kind of gaming experience, like, for example, you mentioned cosmetics, so buying a new outfit for a digital character is just a complete waste of money.
Yeah, I think games create spaces that are kind of more like playgrounds. And so kids do a lot of identity work, a lot of learning, a lot of development. And like in the real world and in real playgrounds, how they look kind of affects how they feel in those spaces. And so there is a desire to have a particular outfit that represents them. It's a little bit like maybe having the latest trainers in the playground when I was growing up, which I think can be positive, but it's also important that parents can guide them and sort of say, well, do you really need this particular item? It's quite expensive.
What are the risks? A lot of parents will think about things like loot boxes.
Yeah, so some items in games, you buy them, but you don't see what's kind of inside the box before you make your purchase. And the box will have a different chance of giving you either the item that you want that's maybe quite rare, or items that are quite common. It's pretty similar to football stickers that I used to collect when I was a boy. But obviously online, those transactions aren't happening in a newsagent, they're happening on a screen. And so it's important that parents understand what that is, and again, help children kind of assess the value, that they're not making the same purchase over and over again, trying to get this one rare item. And all the modern consoles have the ability to set up an account for the child when they're playing, and then set limits on that account. You know, you set a low kind of pocket money level, and when that money's gone, it's gone. And then there's quite a nice kind of learning cycle.
Well, finally, some parents will think it's not about the money they're spending now. It's about whether gaming gets in the way of things like schoolwork, stops them doing their best academically, and maybe impacts their future. What would you say to that?
A nice story I like to share is my son played a game called Rocket League growing up, and he played it quite a lot, and there was some back and forth, like, is he playing too much? And we found a happy balance, but supported him in that. And that's led to him getting very good at that game, and he's now on a scholarship at Roehampton University to play in their esports team. So he gets some money kind of off his fees.
No one tell my kids that's an option.
Yes.
Sadly, there were no university scholarships for Tetris, which is the only game I was ever good at. Stephanie, Andy was kind of talking about how to make spending in games a positive thing. But for some families, this can be really difficult, can't it? It can lead to some really tricky conversations because their children do want to blow all their money on things like loot boxes.
Yeah, I think it's really challenging for us as parents. It can be quite frustrating, can't it, when it's not even a physical thing they're buying. But as he was saying, you know, it's a really good opportunity to introduce things like wants and needs and priorities, and, you know, what else could you get for that same amount of money, and you sure you want to spend that. All those conversations are great. And it also just highlights, you know, the relevance of financial education from a really young age, because often really young children are actually already consumers spending money on these kinds of games, often without even realising it.
Well, I like to think of them as consumers, but they are if they're potentially doing that. OK, that's gaming.